Welcome to a story that begins with idealism and ends in bloodshed. A story that would forever change the social fabric of Nigerian campuses and unleash a monster that still haunts the nation today. This isn't a story about ancient tribes or political coups. This is the story of the first recorded cult clash in Nigeria. In 1952, at the University College, Ibadan, the premier institution of higher learning in colonial Nigeria, the air was thick with the promise of independence. It was here that 7 visionary students, led by Wole Soyinka, a man who would later win the Nobel Prize for Literature, founded an organization. They called it the Pyrates Confraternity. Their motto was against convention. Their mission was radical for its time, to fight tribalism, elitism, and the colonial mentality that plagued the university. They were anti-establishment, using satire, intellectualism, and bold public displays to challenge the status quo. But within a few years, a schism emerged. Some members felt the Pyrates had become too conventional, too embedded in the system they sought to change. In 1953, a breakaway group was formed. They called themselves the Supreme Vikings Confraternity, also known as the Sea Dogs. But this was not an amicable split. The Vikings adopted a more aggressive, militant posture. Where the Pyrates used satire, the Vikings were prepared to use force. The seeds of rivalry were sown. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, these confraternities, and others that followed, began to mutate. The original ideals of fighting social ills were slowly replaced by a new currency, power. Campuses became microcosms of Nigeria's turbulent politics. Student union positions meant influence, and these secret societies became the perfect machinery for rigging elections and intimidating rivals. They became campus cults. Membership promised protection, brotherhood, and a path to power. The rivalry between the Pyrates and the Vikings intensified. It was a Cold War, fueled by insults, propaganda, and minor skirmishes. But the pressure was building, and it needed only a single spark to explode. That spark came on the night of Friday, October 10, 1984. At the University of Ibadan, the Vikings Confraternity was holding an initiation ceremony for new members, known as Capones, in a hall at the Independence Hall of Residence. Somehow, the Pyrates Confraternity got wind of it. They saw an opportunity to strike, to humiliate their rivals on their most sacred night. A group of Pyrate members stormed the venue. What happened next was unprecedented. The verbal taunts escalated. Chairs were thrown, and then weapons were drawn. Knives, machetes, and broken bottles flashed under the dim lights. This was not a student brawl. It was a battle. When the chaos subsided, the campus was in shock. Several students were severely injured, lying in their own blood. While official records are murky on the exact number of fatalities, the event was branded the first major, violent cult clash in Nigerian history. The line had been crossed. The Cold War was now a hot one. The 1984 clash was a point of no return. The Pyrates Confraternity, horrified by the violent turn, made a conscious decision to de-emphasize campus activity and focus on their professional alumni, evolving into the National Association of Sea Dogs as we know today. But for the Vikings and the dozens of new cults that sprouted in the aftermath, like the Black Axe, the Buccaneers, the I Confraternity, the 1984 clash was a blueprint. Violence worked. Intimidation worked. The phenomenon spread like a virus to every university, polytechnic, and college of education in Nigeria. The original ideals were dead, replaced by a culture of brutality, crime, and political thuggery that spilled off campus and into the wider society. So, What began as a noble ideal in 1952 fractured into a bitter rivalry and ignited into a violent clash in 1984, has left a legacy that endures nearly 40 years later. The story of the first cult clash is a tragic parable. It teaches us how quickly idealism can curdle into tribalism, how a fight against convention can become the most vicious convention of all. It is the story of how a single night of violence on a quiet campus in Ibadan opened the floodgates, creating a cycle of bloodshed that Nigeria is still struggling to close today. What are your thoughts on the history of campus cultism in Nigeria? Do you think the original ideals can ever be reclaimed, or is the genie permanently out of the bottle? Share your perspectives in the comments below. If you found this documentary insightful, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into untold African histories.